Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Dream Big podcast with Bob Goff and friends. I'm your co-host, Scott Schimmel, and today we're talking about the world with Bob Goff.
Yeah, that sounds like a big topic. Order a pizza in.
Let's cover it all. Settle in for the next couple hours.
Yeah, I think the whole idea is that there's a whole world out there, and how do we engage that with love and without an agenda? Because when love has an agenda, it isn't love anymore. It's just another program, and the world's full of programs.
Yep.
We don't need one.
Yep.
We just need people who know why they're doing what they're doing. And so some of our travels have taken us close by, and others have taken us far away. And I hoped what we could do is have a conversation about what's our role in the bigger world from wherever you are. I don't care if it's Cleveland or San Diego or Chicago, but what's your role in the bigger thing?
So tell me about how you got started. What was your first trip globally? What's your good internationally that got you involved?
All started with absolute, total, unequivocal rejection.
Really?
Yeah. I was a lawyer and I asked this great outfit, which I won't name because it just make them feel bad, that I asked them, could I just go work for you for nothing and go overseas? I saw the justice work you're doing elsewhere and let me in on it. And they said, nah. So I went to another great place, actually biggest NGO on earth. And I knew the fellow that was heading that up. And I said, hey, tell you what if I go, these guys said no. So what if I go to work for you? Because I really want to do some stuff overseas that would be helpful. And he had the same response. He's like, nah. Yeah. And that was just good judgment on their part. But for me, I just didn't get off the scent. And I hope if you're listening to this, if you've had this thing burning in your heart, you just know because you know that you've got something to contribute to this beautiful melody across the world, that you won't get head faked by somebody saying no as God saying no. It was just these two fellows who remained good friends. They just said no. That didn't mean I was disqualified. It meant it was time for me to get busy. So I started my own organization.
Might as well. Can't reject yourself.
And you can too. Like you can just say, I'm going to start. You don't even need to get a nonprofit and letterhead and all that jazz. Just say, I'm a thing. Yeah. I'm actually, I have agency to bring love and acceptance and peace and justice, whatever is your thing. I'm going to bring that to the world, and I'm not going to wait for permission, and I'm not going to wait for an invitation. Like you're here. Everybody else is here. There's almost 7 billion of us. Right. Let's go do something. Let's get to know each other.
My grandmother, she passed away a few months ago, but in her memorial, someone had mentioned how since she was a little girl, 5, 6 years old, she'd always dreamt of going to Africa, and she got to go later in her years. So where did it all start for you? Were you always into international travel? Were you always into justice?
Yeah, I went to India with a great friend of mine many years ago. This must have been 15 or 20 years ago. And there were these bonded laborers in India. It's a version of slavery where you take out a debt and then you give the person as collateral for your debt. It's just that the debt is never paid off, and so the person remains your slave. And it was going to be this evening where we were going to find these slaves. They were going to meet at this little humble church. I mean, it was just 4 mud walls and lanterns lit. And the thing I remember, Scott, about that is that there were 2 jars full of rice in the front. I'm like, what the heck? And so I asked the pastor, so what's up with the jars? And he said, you know what? People can come in and either take a handful of rice, which would be a meal for a day, or they can give a handful of rice, but you can only do it 1 handful at a time. And that was so impactful for me. So 20, 40, 60 of these slaves came through, and we documented their stories and brought it to the police. And then there was a raid and they got freed. And what I think that we do is that we enter into these ambitions of ours 1 handful at a time. You just take a little bit or you give a little bit. Sometimes we think it needs to be this, like, I'm quitting my job, I'm just do this, or that you need to call your something, self something, or be aligned or invited by some big organization to do it. But I think we just do it a handful at a time. Yeah. So if you're listening, there might be a country that has come to mind for you. Yeah. If that's a recurring thing, I would work it out between you and United Airlines. Mm-hmm. That's what I would do. Yeah. Now, I'm not a planning guy. I'm just not. Really? If you picked up on that, yeah, I'll write it on the back of the barf bag on the way. I do my best planning, like going 450 miles an hour on the way there. But if you're a planning person, then do that. Whatever it is that works for you, whatever it is that gets you there. But don't you dare get wrapped around the axle planning this. And don't make matching T-shirts. And don't call it a mission trip because it's not and you aren't. Just go. Just dig in to say the reason I'm going to do this is that God so loved the whole world. And I'm here and the rest of the world showed up. So I want to go as a student and learn.
What do you say to the people who are hesitant? I don't know. It's like this, I don't want to be a colonialist. Who am I to go and bring something to these people? How do you address that? Because I know there's a lot of friends of mine who would say that. I'm not going to go. What do I have to give?
Yeah, I would say stop listening to all the critics. Sometimes there's this, there's great books that are out there like When Helping Hurts and Toxic Charity and all that. You start reading enough things about how everybody's blowing it and you go like, well, I don't want to go and kill baby puppy seals or whatever. Like, I don't want to be,
no, you don't.
I don't want to be that guy. But I'd say just be unafraid and show up, be humble. And to say, I'm going not as the teacher, I'm going as the student, but don't let that wave you off. Just go and say, I'm just going to learn a ton with expectation of who I'll meet along the way. When people go with us, we'll say, like, look for three things. First, look to have deeper friendships with the people you're traveling with. I know that doesn't sound big and deep and theological, but it's big, it's deep, and it's theological. Actually, a shared experience with somebody, that's terrific. Number two, look for evidence of Jesus. If faith is your thing, then look, I promise Jesus isn't arriving with you. He's been there a long time before you. Find out where he showed up. And so just go, not thinking you're bringing a faith to that. You're bringing yourself and you're bringing everything you've got to encounter everything God's already done there. That's just awesome. And number three, if it happens that God uses you, that's terrific. But that's a distant third. So that would be flipping it on its end to say, I'm going on a mission trip and this is what I'm doing for you. It feels a little presumptuous because if you pull back the screen, what happens oftentimes is our friends overseas are running around for weeks offline of everything else they're supposed to be doing, getting ready. So our trip goes awesome, right? So if you just flipped it, just say, like, if you want a t-shirt, put low maintenance on it. That's our trip. We just want to be low maintenance. How can I be helpful? Don't do anything to serve us. And they will because they're delightful. But if we had that kind of a humble attitude, man, you don't have to worry about the rest.
Yeah. How about the folks who are listening who have, let's say, little kids and the idea of picking up and traveling internationally feels overwhelming? One question is, when did you start taking your kids internationally?
I'd say when our kids were maybe 6, 8, 10.
Okay.
I think those were the ages of
still young.
Richard, Adam, Lindsay.
Yeah.
At the time. So they were young, but they weren't infants. And traveling with infants has its own, like you check the CDC and they'll say don't. But to travel with your younger kids, it's beautiful. The crazy part is that your younger children won't remember much about the trip. They'll remember what you tell them later about the experience that you had, which is even awesome. Right. But you start carving this little groove in their brain that we're actually citizens of Earth and not just our community. And it certainly includes our community, but it isn't limited to our community. And then when they hear about something happening in the Middle East or something, if they've been there, they go, those actually, they're the people that were super kind to me, right? They were those people. And like, totally, they were those people. And so to experience those things, and again, if faith guides your steps to go to some of the countries that were talked about in Scripture, to experience that firsthand, to say like, wow, remember when we went to that place? That's this place we were just reading about. They go like, wow. It'll really make things spring alive to you. So moving from just being an observer up in the bleachers to down in the field to say, yeah, I actually want to see this thing. And for many people, it's just expensive to travel. It is for me too. I've got the benefit of having about a gazillion frequent flyer miles, but look out for deals. I mean, I'm a coupon guy. Yeah. So I would find these when British Airways would open up a new route into London, they would offer these like $50 seats, like each way. And I eat $60 of peanuts each way. So I'd buy a stack of those and to say, I'm not sure when we're going to use them, but we're going to use those things. Find friends that have frequent flyer miles to say, hey, send me here. You don't have to dress it up. Don't call it anything other than what it is. It's a trip. I'd like to go on.
Yes.
And that's actually more beautiful and wholesome than a story about how you've characterized yourself in the role of the hero, and then the other people are the ones that you're going to help out. Just say, I'm just going to go. And if you could help make that happen, that's awesome.
What about the world around us? How do you get to know the world around you? What have you done?
You know what? One of the things I've tried to do is stay engaged. So, for instance, if there are events unfolding in the world, don't let the news do all the talking for you. I mean, if Kim Jong-un has a nuke, like write him a letter. I have. I wrote to Gorbachev. Nobody wants to talk to him anymore. They want to talk to Putin.
Yeah.
But write to Gorby. He's probably just hanging out, wearing knee socks and a metal detector. Yeah. So, but to engage the world rather than just watching it from afar. And so if something happens to another country, if they have a setback or a tragedy, write to their ambassador in Washington, D.C. Send some flowers over to just say, I'm really sorry that happened. What we started doing, we'd call them week in a day. And do this with your family, friends, kids. We would fly back to Washington, D.C., one of these cheap red eyes, like $150. We would fly all night, land at Dulles at 7 in the morning, kind of go into the restroom there and tidy up a little bit, and then hit one embassy every hour for 8 hours and fly home that night and be home for dinner. I am not kidding. So it was a full day, that's for sure. But it was just so fun. I bet I've done that 30 times. You can actually hit everybody if you just say like boom, 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 boom. And nobody knows some of these countries, that they don't get very many visitors, and then you show up and to say like, I'm here. Like, I'm just curious. Pro tip, get to know the chief of staff. The ambassadors like kissing babies. The chief of staff is the one that's making all the moves. And then just become friends with them and just stay friends with them. It's a tip, but it's Google alerts. Have you ever used those? Yeah. So you just put in their name. It's like non-creepy stalking.
Right.
Just anytime their name shows up. So a friend of mine that was the ambassador for Bolivia just got appointed yesterday to the permanent member of the Organization of American States. Most people don't know what that is. It's a big deal. But I was the guy that wrote to him to say, Jaime, way to go.
No, that's cool.
Dude, yes. I call him on his birthday every year and sing to him. It's torture. But he hates it and loves it. He's like, no. But there's something beautiful about instead of just going once and then do this flyby and then leave and take a selfie, what if you lose the selfie and just say, well, let's be friends instead? And it isn't that the photograph's bad, but don't have anybody confused. I didn't come for a picture. I came for a friendship. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, if you want to go and see the head of a country, if you've already met their ambassador and you're like, oh, you're that nice person from Wichita, because I guarantee they don't know anybody from Wichita.
Right.
So to say you're that nice person, they will send your letter in the diplomatic pouch to the head of state, you get a yes every time.
Crazy.
Trust me, it works. And so there's something beautiful about that. Isn't your agenda, it isn't a backdoor, but it's living a life of full engagement. So God so loved the whole world that perhaps you would land on this planet that's going through the heavens at 25,000 miles an hour so you could slow down enough and meet a couple people that are on the ride with you.
your kids aren't 6, 8, and 10 anymore. They're older.
Yes, 27, 29, and 31.
Okay.
Is that awesome?
That's crazy.
Yes,
So
I'm loving it. And they're actually making people now. That's the coolest part.
What do you see as you raise them like that? What do you see in their lives now?
Oh, they see the whole world as available to them. There's a danger, parents, about that. You know, you can end up exposing your kids of the whole world, and they'll marry somebody from Peru.
Yeah, right.
And go there. But one of the things that I've observed in their life, even by the time they get to college, they started making these trips to visit the leaders they had met when they were 6, 8, and 10. They're traveling as 20-year-olds to the same leaders because they're still in charge.
Yeah, well, right.
Because they're dictators. And so to go and visit them, they're one of these trips to a country. The kids arrived. They saw this guy, and he said, "You know what, kids? I am so honored to see you." All these years later, he reached into his desk, and he pulled out the pin that they brought with them and forgot. And they said, "In my country, it's a huge honor. When somebody leaves something, it's a promise that they'll be back. I've kept this for 15 years.
Oh my gosh.
Is that crazy?
Wow, that's cool.
Love that. So I'm telling you, engage the world.
Yeah.
Buy a roll of stamps and engage it that way. If you can get a couple frequent flyer miles together, engage it that way. If something has happened to a country, engage them either domestically through their embassy or figure out another way to find a consulate that's in your community and say, "I heard about this thing. I just want you to know that I'm sorry." But don't leave there. Say, "Let's be friends. Would that be okay? I've got a lot to learn from you." And I'm telling you, after a while, the word gets out that you're a really safe person. So we bring people together now that are sore at each other, and we'll bring them together at this place we have in Canada because some of them actually aren't welcome in the United States. So we'll go up there and they'll sign peace agreements together. Is that crazy?
That's a really
I always
nice
sign
way
for
to
the
say
U.S.
that.
I'm like, whatever, sue me. So, but though in the peace agreement, we'll say we're just going to find the poor people and help them out. We're going to live humble lives, and it's just so beautiful to hear people that are making decisions for many, many people sit across from one another. And you know how a life story might go for 5 or 6 minutes, and you'd say where he went to school and I got married, I have a couple kids. This one guy from one of these countries we don't happen to be getting along with right now, he went for 6 hours
about his life,
telling his adversary his life.
Oh my gosh.
And then his adversary told him for 6 hours about his life.
Crazy.
And it was so beautiful to watch these guys forge a friendship because they just knew each other. I'm telling you, don't leave all the fun to the UN. Don't leave it to other people. You're here.
That's great.
You've got all the... Jesus picked 12 fishermen, and they couldn't even get the nets on the right side of the boat. And one of the Sunday school guys even bombed out on him. But what he did is he used unschooled, ordinary people to change the whole world. And if you are listening to this, then you have ears. I guarantee it. And let them listen to this. You've got all the agency, all the opportunity you need. You don't need to have a fancy name. You don't need to have a big following. You don't need anything. You need an address and to write the letter and to say, if they say yes, I'm going. Because you know what? Buckle up because they're going to say yes.
Well, catch us up on Love Does. What's the scope of the work you guys are doing?
Yeah, so Love Does now is through all of the support of everybody involved now has been in, we're in India with schools, Nepal with schools. The most recent school is in Afghanistan. We're up to the second story. We're building that. We've been there for a year and a half now, and there's a lot of tension in the region, but we just keep going back and teaching little girls how to read and write, which has got some people anxious, but not me. I just think it's like a really beautiful thing to do. We had started in the middle of the Yazidis problem in Iraq, a school there. We're in Mogadishu, Somalia. Wow. We're opening in a month our next women's school there. Yeah. We're teaching them how to, we don't try to empower women. We just get out of their way. We think they're already powerful. Yeah. We're in Uganda. We have 1,400 students at the Love Does School. We've got a witch doctor's school and a couple, which is rowdy.
First
I
of its
love
kind.
that place. Yeah, because they have like more toes than teeth, but they're actually people that are already leaders in their community, and so to lead the leaders, teach them how to read and write, and to figure out what are next steps for them. So, and then Day, who is our executive director, is actually flying today to Congo to start the next school.
Oh,
And so
wow.
here's the deal. If you're listening, you go like, well, that's terrific. And you pointed out a couple countries on the earth. What if you just put all that aside, say, I have an ambition, and this is it. Let me start with what matters the most to me, my family or person that you love the most. And to say, what if we go and we engage a country, find an unschooled ordinary person. Like there's a friend named Nam in Bhutan, and it rhymes. So Nam is an unschooled ordinary guy, and he's been a friend for a decade and a half. But then there's also leaders in Bhutan. What if you get one of each? And to say for each country, I'm going to get to know one unschooled ordinary person like yourself, and then one person in leadership. And then just continue on. I'm telling you, it'd be really fun. And don't collect these things like they're postage stamps. We're not collecting people or collecting relationships. What we're doing is engaging the earth. We want to live into this idea that God so loved everybody. Because as soon as you meet one person in a country, it's like you've met everybody.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy?
Right.
So if there's an earthquake in Peru and you know one person from
You
Peru,
know Peru.
you feel like, oh, I love Peru.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is heightening our awareness. And we start looking at the world the way that perhaps God does a little bit more, that he sees a bunch of insecure, very fragile people that sometimes have difficulty getting along. And then what he does is he introduces you to one other person, and you become this person with a friendship. And then it'll go great sometimes and not great other times. There was one guy who was actually living in exile. And I went over to say hello, and somehow a photograph got somewhere, and the ambassador of that country was with me, and now he's living in exile.
Oh no!
I'm like, my bad.
Whoopsie.
Just didn't see that one coming. It wasn't my picture. But we actually get together pretty often and kind of laugh about how unlikely that was. Like we had
What are the
this
odds?
beautiful friendship, and we were thinking, what are the chances that it would go so wonky so fast? But when you have these friendships, you actually, it makes you more humble, and it makes you more engaged. And so when something bad happens in another country, I don't think of them as my adversary. I think that's the country that has my friend.
Right. Yeah. And it's about you. It's about you and your heart getting bigger and larger and more loving, which is what you're saying. What's what you're saying?
What I find is the people that are more engaged in what's going on around the world, oftentimes they have fewer opinions about everybody, because you're talking about my friends now. And I'm just, when somebody starts talking, I don't care what the big issue of the day is.
Right.
But you're talking actually about my friends right now, and it just creates a different vibe in the conversation. I'm a little bit more reticent to say harsh words, because it go like, actually it'd be like talking about my friend behind their back. And so what it'll do in you is it'll start changing your hearts. And so small, medium, or large. Small version, write a letter to the ambassador of whatever country you've been thinking about, Iceland, like whatever, or Egypt, like whatever it is. But pick your country, write that letter. Don't put it on a list. Go get a stamp, go get an envelope, and just write the letter. Hi. My name is, you know where it goes from there. And then send that letter, get $1 postage because it's international. And so then wait by the mailbox, and I guarantee you in the 2 weeks it'll take for that letter to get there and them to respond, you're going to start seeing things on the news, reading things. You'll start caring. You go like, oh my gosh, it's like the Grinch where their heart got bigger and bigger. I'm not saying you're Grinches, but it'll just start making your heart bigger and you say like, I have a connection and you did that for $1.
Yeah.
And then they'll write back and they may say, would you like to come over and visit? I'm telling you, there's only one answer: that sell the pickup truck. I did. Like we got invited to Malaysia. It was just after Tun Mahathir, who was the dictator at the time. He had just held the World Islamic Conference and said two things: death to America and death to Israel.
Wow.
And so we had written to him to say, gosh, we had just met with a person from Israel, their president. And so could we meet with you and give you a message from him?
Well,
and he said, yes, how about Thursday?
Really?
Literally sold the pickup truck.
No way.
We all jumped on a plane, went over there.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, when I see anything to do with Malaysia or any of the setbacks that they've had, I just care more. And it's not for a selfie. You'll never see one of those. It's just like the relationship. Forget that. Go to your state capital. Go meet your governor. Go meet your city councilman. Get to know the name of your postman. Put a note on the outside to say, I'm starting small. What's your name? Leave a little bottle of water. That you'll start caring about the mail more. You'll start caring about the mail carrier. You'll start giving thanks, not just for the food, but for the guy or gal who leaned over to pick it. That's what happens. Find your way into a field to find a migrant worker who's been engaged in this really honorable work that's terribly difficult, and it'll make you say grace differently. And I'm just saying that that's the pitch. If we could engage the world more with curiosity, with humility, with a desire to learn, it'll change everything, and you're one stamp away from that. You are a 10-minute drive, 5-minute walk, or walking out to your front yard and saying, yeah, like you're welcome here. The crazy thing is your neighbors will start knowing that too. They'll say like, wow, like why do you fly the flag of Uganda over your house?
What is that flag?
I know. But like this is actually the consulate, which is crazy. So it'll just start changing everything. Ask somebody if you can be the consul for their country. That's nuts, but I dare you. I double dare you to do it. Because I'm the consul for Uganda, you know what that makes you, Scott?
What?
My envoy.
Really?
Do you even know what an envoy is?
No.
Me neither. It just means you're in. So if I write a letter on letterhead and say my envoy is coming to meet you, if they say no, it's not a slap in the face to you or to me, to 41 million Ugandans. Whoa. So they have to say yes, automatic yes.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
That's crazy.
The only deal is we need to just decide that we want to engage the world. And it's not a better thing than all the other things you're engaging, but wouldn't it enhance the conversations you're having around the dinner table to say, if you were thinking about going, just find Liechtenstein on a map.
Right. Yeah.
If you find your way there, you'll be having dinner with the prime minister at his house because there are more sheep than people in Liechtenstein.
I've been there.
And it's like the size of a small football field. Yeah. But there's something really beautiful about that. You'll feel like you'll hear Liechtenstein anywhere in the news, and you'll go like, oh, I know all of them, and they're sheep.
For God to Love the World. This month we have a workbook. It's called A Guide to Dreaming Big for the World. It's just a way for you to capture some of the thoughts that Bob's sharing here and turn it into action for you and for your family. So I'm inspired, Bob. I want to love more. I want to be connected more. I want to understand what God's doing in the world. So thanks for sharing this stuff.
Yeah, and we're each going to find what we're looking for. Yeah. If you're looking for love, you're going to find it. If you're looking for a snappy convertible, you're going to find it. But if you're looking to actually love the world, you don't have to get on a plane to do that. You can do that right across the street.